Good morning, students. I hope so. Everyone is good and everyone is doing fine. So, this is your summary lecture from chapter number 7, Lifelines of National Economy, class 10th, subject Geography. So, in our previous lectures, we have talked about this entire chapter in parts. Basically, we have discussed the means of transport here and how it actually contributes to our national economy. So today in this particular lecture, we are going to rewind each and every topic again with some brief and some to the point discussion that we are going to do today in the summary lecture. So there will be few notes that I have made for you. You can note it down as well, and few of the things that I have written in detail. So I am just going to explain you that in brief, but you can write it down in your own points as well. So let's get start with the summary lecture now. It's going to be a very big one. So please be patient and please just have your book, one notebook and one pen in your hand to write down the notes. Okay. So please get start. Please be ready with all those things and we are getting started with the lecture. Now first of all, I am going to introduce you about this particular chapter, which is the lifelines of national economy. So basically we use different materials and services in our day-to-day life. Majorly all the things that we do, like all the things that we need, what are we like? If you go for shopping, if you want to go like take any sort of stationery item or fruits or vegetables or any sort of things, any material, any services you want in your daily to day-to-day life, you have to take from either from any shop or any other things. So where they come from? Basically they come from these transportation services only. So some of these are quite available in our immediate surroundings. मतलब कुछ आपके जो stationery items होते हैं, fruits, vegetables जो चीज़ें होती हैं, they are actually available at nearby to your surroundings. While there are other requirements also that are met by bringing things from other places. Now each and everything would not be possible and would not be available at your place currently. So what they sometimes these people what they do, they bring it from the other places around. So majorly these goods and services do not move from supply locals to demand locals on their own. So majorly if you want something or the other from the other part of the like country, मतलब आप रह रहे हो अभी हरियाणा में और आपको चाहिए कोई साउथ का जो मतलब कोई चीज़ है जो आपको चाहिए, तो ऐसे तो वो आ नहीं जाएगा. इट इज़ नॉट गोइंग टू कम टू यू जस्ट लाइक दैट. इट इज़ नॉट गोइंग टू कम फ्रॉम दैट सप्लाई लोकल टू योर डिमांड लोकल जस्ट लाइक दैट. इट इज़ गोइंग टू ट्रैवल from any means of mode and then it is going to come to you. So the movement of these goods and services from their supply locations to demand location necessarily need for transportation. So majorly the movement of all the goods and services that we are exchanging from one place to another, from the basically from the supply locals who are making these things and the demand locals who actually want these things, are the basically getting all the things by the means of transport only. Now some people are engaged in facilitating these movements. Now majorly from where all these things are transported, these goods and services are coming, majorly they are engaged in some of the facilities with these movements, and that are known as the traders who basically make the products come to the consumers by the transportation here. So majorly all the trading system we are having and all the things that we get, it is just because of the traders that they are the one who is transferring and exchanging the goods and services from one place to another to the consumers by these transportation services. So the pace of development of a country, it all depends upon the production of goods and services as well as their movement over space. So I have told you in economics as well about the production sector and the service sector. So they are very much complementary to each other. Why? Because if you are just producing the things and you are not distributing it, so how can it is going to be profitable for the person out there? So basically it requires the production and the service sectors need each other. They are complementary to each other in many ways. just because they have to be dependent on each other, the one who is producing and the one who is giving who is transporting these goods to the consumers, because when they are going to sell it, the profit itself is going to given to the producer's hands. So majorly they are the whoever is in the production side or whoever in the service side, basically they are dependent on each other and they are complementary to each other in many ways. Now these means of transport basically are the lifelines of a national economy. How? So basically these are the few points that are written. You can write it down also, that is quite important for you. Like these movements of these goods and services can be over three important dominants of our earth, and these important dominants are basically the land, the water and the air. So majorly why the means of transport and communication is known as the lifeline of our national economy, basically they help in increasing cooperation and access between countries. So the business cooperation we are having with the other countries, the goods that we are exchanging, the money we are rebuilding from it, that is only possible because of the transportation system mode of transportation system we are having between other countries. Then it is a easy movement of goods and material between the countries. So basically if you don't have a proper mode of transport, you can't like exchange these goods and services with that ease. So basically for the easy movement of goods and material between the countries, means of transport help you out with a smooth functioning of all these things. Apart from that, trade and commerce within the country also help a lot. So basically the trade and commerce within the country help in the national economy, to build the national economy in many ways, because the production sector, the supplier section are just producing it, but to reach it out to the consumers, the traders and the commerce section help them to eventually take the initiative and transport all those material from the production side to the consumer side, and basically the money they are going to earn, it is eventually going to help the traders and for the producers as well. So eventually people are getting employed here. Transportation system is helping out for both the ways, is like both the sections of the parties, where the suppliers are also getting the beneficial and the consumers are also getting the benefit. So overall the trading and commerce within the country help out just because of the means of transport only. Now they are reducing distance, thus bringing the world closer. Now basically we require a lot of things around us and we are unable to get it just because of the distance that is there. Now just because of these means of transport and communication, they have reduced the distance and they are bringing the world closer. Why? If like just people like your friends must be like living in the different part of the country or different part of the state, and you want to meet them, you want to go and travel all around. So traveling and tourism basically help you in reducing the distance and bringing the world closer. Now you can go anywhere in the world and travel, look up to the world wherever possible. So basically this mode of transport is helping to bring the world more closer with each other. Now both production and distribution of goods help with the means of transport only. So basically I have just told you that the benefit the production is having and the distribution of goods are basically a complementary relationship. They exchange with each other, just because the production that they are going to do, the means of transport is basically linking them together and making a bridge where the production and the distribution of goods goes to the consumers with this mode of transport only. So they can choose any mode of transport, it could be land, air or water, to transfer the goods, and distribution of goods could happen to in various states possible just because of these means of transport only. So that's how the mode of transport maintain a link between the production and the distribution of goods amongst different states there and in different countries as well. Then the movement of large number of people and over long distances covered by these means of transport only. Now majorly the movement of this large number of people that they travel all alone, it happens because of the means of transport only, and over a longer distance of time they can cover it with very easily through this means of transport. They can choose anyone here. So that was the means of transport. Now we are focusing on the different means of transport. So first of all we are taking the roadways. So roadways, what are these roadways, how they are important in our life? See, we are starting with the importance of road transport vis-a-vis railway rail transport. Basically we are comparing it with the railway lines also here. So basically the construction cost of roads is much lower than that of any railway lines here. So we are basically comparing it with the railways, that which is more beneficial, and why roadways are more important than any other land transport we are having. So here the construction cost of roads is much lower than that of any railway lines here. मतलब जितना आप रोड, आपका कंस्ट्रक्शन ऑफ रोड में जितने भी मटेरियल लगता है वो बहुत कम है रेलवे लाइंस को बनाने में. देन रोड्स कैन traverse comparatively more descended and undulating topography. Basically the building up of these roads in these difficult lines or difficult ways would be more possible with the roads, but railway lines ka build up karna in such certain areas like hills or any other stuff, it is quite difficult. So roads can easily be built in such kind of areas, but the railway lines in such difficult areas, it's very difficult. Now roads can negotiate higher gradients of slopes, and as such can traverse mountains such as the Himalayas. So basically these roads can be built in the Himalayan slopes as well very easily. Well, not that easily, but they can build up. They can build up in the mountain slopes as well. But the railways can't be do the same way. So they have a certain benefit of roads with that कि अगर आपको जाना हो तो आप roadways के through आराम से जा भी सकते हो. So as this road transport is economical in transportation of few person and relatively smaller amount of goods over short distances. So basically जितना भी आपका road transport है, it is economically in transporting of few persons and relatively smaller amount of goods over short distances. It also provides door-to-door services, thus the cost of loading and unloading is much lower. And road transport is also used as a feeder to other modes of transport as well. So what these statements say, that basically the first statement here express that जो road transport होते हैं वो economical होते हैं because few person and relatively smaller amount of goods over shorter distance can cover easily. आपको इतना मतलब shorter distance के लिए it is quite beneficial, but not for the longer distance, but shorter distance के लिए it is quite economical. Then it also provides door-to-door services as well. अब railway lines तो door-to-door पहुंच नहीं सकती, so it has a benefit that any other thing can't be give services like door-to-door, but road services can give. Thus the cost of loading and loading is much lower here. Now this road transport is also used as the feeder of other modes of transport because every other way, अगर वो goods आ रहे हो sea ports के through या फिर railways या airports, they use this mean of roads only to deliver it to the place where they have to be delivered. So each and every mode of other transport have to use roadways to deliver the items in that particular place. So that's why it is called the feeder of other modes of transport as well. Now India is one of the largest road network in the world. If you have known that it हमारे इंडिया में 2.3 million kilometers हैं at present, that is there. And majorly अगर हम देखा जाए तो अभी हमने इसकी importance की बात कर ही ली है. Now we are going to talk about India has 6 classes according to its capacity. मतलब जो रोड्स हैं जो हमारे क्लासेस हैं वो अलग अलग टाइप की होती हैं. कुछ जैसे आपने हाईवेज देखे होंगे, अलग अलग टाइप के हाईवेज होते हैं, उसके बारे में हम बात करेंगे अब. So basically these 6 classes of roads in India according to their capacities are here. So first one is Golden Quadral Super Highways. So basically these are known as the national highways here. जो super quadral super highways हैं, super highways मतलब they link different states and different cities with each other here, and the major roads are here which are basically developed projecting linking with the super highways. मतलब इसमें एक नहीं दो से तीन मतलब 3 to 4 cities and states are there which are linked with this super highways. सो मेजरली जो पहला प्रोजेक्ट मेजर रोड प्रोजेक्ट बनाया गया था जिन्होंने लिंक किया था दिल्ली, कोलकाता, चेन्नई, मुंबई फिर एंड दिल्ली बाय 6 लेन ऑफ सुपर हाईवे चेन. सो इनका जो सुपर ये जो गोल्डन क्वाड्रल सुपर हाईवे जो बना था जिन्होंने लिंक करने की कोशिश की थी, तो मेजर सिटीज दे हैव कवर्ड विद दिस विच इज दिल्ली, कोलकाता, चेन्नई, मुंबई एंड अगेन विद दिल्ली हैव बाय 6 लेन ऑफ सुपर हाईवेज. Now again the north south corridors linking is जो उसके अलावा जो है वो है हमारा जो साउथ से शुरू हो मतलब नॉर्थ टू साउथ वाला है which is linking श्रीनगर which is from जम्मू एंड कश्मीर एंड कन्याकुमारी इन तमिलनाडु. वो श्रीनगर से कनेक्ट करता है सीधा जम्मू ये कन्याकुमारी तक. देन एक और भी है जो कि सुपर हाईवे में आता है हमारा, वो है ईस्ट वेस्ट कॉरिडोर जो कि कनेक्ट करता है सिलचर वो असम में एंड कनेक्टेड विद पोरबंदर विच इज इन गुजरात आर द पार्ट ऑफ दिस पर्टिकुलर प्रोजेक्ट ओनली. नाउ दे आर मेड टू रिड्यूस द टाइम एंड डिस्टेंस बिटवीन द मेगा सिटीज ऑफ इंडिया. सो व्हाई दे वर बिल्ड, व्हाई दे हैव एस्टैब्लिश्ड द सुपर हाईवेज, just to reduce the time and distance that we have to travel all along and we have to cover such a huge like distance. So to reduce the time and distance with these mega cities in India, they have introduced this super highway system. Now apart from that we have national highways as well. So how this national highway help us? Basically this national highways link all the major cities same way जो super हाईवेज है नेशनल हाईवेज में हमारा भी वही सेम चीज है दैट दे आर लिंकिंग ऑल द मेजर सिटीज एक्सट्रीमली पार्ट ऑफ द कंट्री. दीज आर द प्राइमरी रोड सिस्टम एंड दे आर मेंटेन्ड बाय द सेंट्रल पब्लिक वर्क्स डिपार्टमेंट विच इज CPWD. तो जो भी इनकी मेंटेनेंस होती है इन रोड्स की जो स्पेशली नेशनल हाईवेज की दे आर मेंटेन्ड by the authority which is Central Public Works Department. And currently we have this National Highway 7 between Varanasi and Kanyakumari is one of the longest highway of India till now. So if you talk about कि बहुत सारे हैं वैसे तो नेशनल हाईवे अगर हमें बात की जाए, but still जो अभी तक का सबसे लॉन्गेस्ट वाला हाईवे है वो वाराणसी टू कन्याकुमारी है एंड विच इज नेशनल हाईवे नंबर 7. और उसके अलावा अगर हमें देखा जाए तो जो हाईवे नेशनल हाईवे नंबर 8 है दैट ऑल्सो कवर्स अ लॉट ऑफ प्लेसेज एंड दैट इज ऑल्सो वन ऑफ द इम्पोर्टेंट वन हियर क्योंकि उसमें मेजर सिटीज कवर हो रही है एंड उसके अलावा नेशनल हाईवे नंबर 15 कवर्स मोस्ट ऑफ द राजस्थान हियर. सो देयर आर फ्यू ऑफ द इम्पोर्टेंट नेशनल हाईवेज विच आर देयर. उसके अलावा वी हैव स्टेट हाईवे. सो स्टेट हाईवे बेसिकली लिंक द डिस्ट्रिक्ट हेडक्वार्टर्स ऑफ अ पर्टिकुलर स्टेट. जैसे हरियाणा है हमारे यहाँ पे इतने सारे डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स हैं सो इट कनेक्ट्स ऑल ऑफ देम टुगेदर. So these roads are linking a state capital with different district headquarters and these roads are constructed and maintained by the State Public Works Department in state and union territories here. So this state highways are established and worked according to the State Public Works Department which is there in every state and their union territories as well. They basically link the state capital with different district headquarters. Then apart from that we have district roads as well. Now these roads basically connect the district headquarters with other places of the district. मतलब कुछ ऐसे villages भी होते हैं ऐसे districts में. They basically connect these roads to this district headquarters with the other place of the district and these roads are basically maintained by the Zilla Parishad. Now apart from that we have other roads as well. So these other roads are known as the rural roads which link rural areas and villages with towns and are classified under this category. Now under the Pradhan Mantri Gramin Sadak Yojana scheme, There are special provisions that have been made so that every village in the country is linked to a major town in the country by an all-season motorable road. So motorable road is basically where every channel could not be possible, like these railways, airports, and not any other form of transport could be possible, but they make this road motorable road where you can travel through, मतलब आप उसके आ जा सकते हो मोटर बाइक्स में या कार आप उसमें अपनी मतलब ले जा सकते हो. That's why they have known as all season motorable roads. Now apart from that we have border roads as well. Now what are these border roads? These border roads organize construction and maintain roads in the bordering areas of the country, and these roads are of strategic importance in the northern and northeastern border areas. तो जितने भी हमारे नेबरिंग कंट्रीज हैं उससे जितनी भी हमारी बॉर्डर रोड्स कनेक्ट करती हैं, दे आर नोन एज दी बॉर्डर रोड्स एंड दे आर वर्कड अंडर दी बॉर्डर रोड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. दे आर कंस्ट्रक्टेड अकॉर्डिंग टू दैट एंड मेंटेनेंस भी इनकी उन्हीं से ही वही करते हैं. Now apart from that, road density is of the length of road per 100 square kilometer of area is known as the density of roads, and distribution of road is not uniform in the country. Density of all roads varies from only 12.14 kilometer in Jammu and Kashmir to 514.77 kilometer in Kerala, and with the national average of 142.68 kilometers. This road transportation in India faces a number of problems, and keeping in view the volume of traffic and passengers, the road network is inadequate. About half of the roads are end-metalled, and this limits their usage during the rainy season, and the national highways are inadequate too. So moreover, the roadways are highly congested in the cities, and most of the bridges are culverts are old and narrow. However, the recent years fast development of road network has been placed in different parts of the country as well. So these are few of the obstacles if you want to write it down about the drawbacks of the roadways. Now we are coming to the railways. So railways are the main principal mode of transportation for freight and passengers in India. Freight is basically where you can carry a lot of amount of goods, basically the bulky amount of goods from one place to another with this particular mode of thing, and passengers can also travel from one place to the another place with this mode of transport. So basically the railways also make it possible to conduct multifarious activities. So multifarious activities are those activities which include each and everything, basically sightseeing, tourism, trading system, serving of different kind of things, placing relief funds, everything. So it's kind of a multifarious activity which is like businesses, sightseeing, pilgrimage, along with the transportation of goods over longer distances. Then apart from an important means of transport, the Indian Railways have been a great integrating force for more than 150 years now. So it is helping out the transportation system for more than 150 years now. Now railways in India bend the economic life of the country as well as accelerate the development of the industry and agriculture as well. So basically railways have made a huge link between the development of the industry and agriculture, because most of the productions have been traveling within the state through these railways only. So they are providing all the goods to different places with the help of these railways connection only. Now these Indian Railways have a network of 7,133 stations spread over a route length of 64,460 km with the fleet of 9,213 locomotives and 53,220 passenger services vehicles, which they have 6,493 other coach vehicles and 2,29,381 vehicles as in March 2011. So this is the record of the Indian Railways we have, the network we have in India. So you can note it down, and it is just the record till March 2011. Now it has increased to a lot more number. Now we are going to talk about the pipelines. So basically this pipeline transport network is a new arrival on the transportation map of India. So you have seen this huge pipes that are there. First of all, these pipelines have been used just to transfer the water and for the sewage purposes. So these were used to transport water to the different cities and industries. Now these are used for transporting crude oil, petroleum products and natural gas from oil and natural gas fields to refineries, fertilizers, factories and big thermal power plants. Now the solids can also be transported through a pipeline when converted into slurry. The far inland location of refineries like Bhaurani, Mathura, Panipat and gas-based fertilizer plants could be through of only because of these pipelines only, and the initial cost of laying of this pipeline is high, but subsequent running costs are very minimal. It rules out transshipment losses and delays as well. Okay, so there are certain importance of all these things here. So first of all, we are going to talk about the importance of railways in India. So what are the major important things that we have to know about the railways? So majorly they are the principal mode of transport of freight and passengers in India. If you want to write down in points, you can write down these points in about the importance. Then railways also make it possible to conduct different activities like business, sightseeing and pilgrimage along with transportation of goods over longer distances. Then Indian railways play a role of national integration. Railway in India bend the economic life of the country as well as accelerate the development of the industry and agriculture. And these are, if you got a question like that, what are the factors which influence the distribution pattern of railway network in India? So you can write down in points. I have written in paragraph, but you can write down in points what you can write it down here. So basically the distribution pattern of the railway network in the country has been largely influenced by psychographic, economic and administrative factors. This could be the first point, that they are majorly influenced by the psychography. Psychography means the nature of the region. So it all depends what kind of region that you are making this railway lines. It is in the hilly slopes or the forest area or in the desert kind of area. So it all depends on the nature of the region. Then certain economic and administrative factors also being influenced in making these railway lines. Then the density railway network is high in the northern plains because they are vast level land and they have high population density and rich agricultural resources. It is basically in the hilly terrains of the peninsular region. Railway tracks and they are basically laid through these low hills, gaps or tunnels. Therefore, it is very difficult to construct these railway lines in these particular areas. Now the Himalayan mountainous regions too are very unfavorable for the construction of railway lines due to high relief, sparse population and lack of economic opportunities. So basically this in the regions like Himalayan mountains, it is very unfavorable for the construction of the railway lines due to there is no relief fund that they can got. There is very sparse population which is very less, means there is ना के बराबर population जिसको हम कहते हैं. Then the lack of economic opportunities, they are very less. So it is difficult to lay railway lines on the sandy plains of western Rajasthan, swamps of Gujarat, forested tracts of Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Odisha and Jharkhand as well. Now importance of pipelines in India, if you want to describe it. So in the past, these were used to transport water to cities and industries. Now these are used for transporting crude oil, petroleum products and natural gas from oil and natural gas fields to refineries, fertilizer factories and big thermal power plants. Now these solids can also be transported through a pipeline when it is converted into slurry. Now because of this pipeline, refineries like Bhaurani, Mathura, Panipat and gas-based fertilizer plants could be located in the interiors of India, and initial cost of laying pipelines is high, but subsequent running costs are very minimal. So it rules out transshipment during transportation losses or delays. Now there are three important networks of pipeline transportation in the country. So I just told you that what you have to write. So you can write according to these points that I have written, and you can include the branches also if you want to. So basically the three networks of pipeline transportation in our country are: first is from oil field, which is in Upper Assam to Kanpur, that is in Uttar Pradesh. Second, from Salaya in Gujarat to Jalandhar in Punjab. Third, gas pipeline from Hazira in Gujarat and connects it to Jagdishpur in Uttar Pradesh. So these are the few points that you can write, and you can add on the branches also if you want to. Then the importance of water transport. Now, how does water transport help? So basically, water transport are the cheapest means of transport. They are most suitable for carrying the heavy and bulky goods, and it is fuel efficient and it is environmental friendly mode also. This is the only thing that is important for the water transport that you should know. These are few of the points that you can write. Then another thing that is important is the national waterways by the government. So there are 5 which we have discussed, so we are discussing it again. These 5 national waterways by the government are: first, the Ganga river, which is between Allahabad and Haldia, which is covering the distance of 1620 kilometers, which is known as National Waterway number 1. Then apart from that, we have the Brahmaputra river between Sadia and Dhubri, which is covering a distance of 891 kilometers, which is known as National Waterway number 2. Then we have the West Coast Canal in Kerala, which is covering the distance from Kottampura, Koman, Udyog Mandal and Champakra canals, which is covering distance of 205 kilometers, and this is the National Waterway number 3. इसके अलावा 2 और है, आई डोंट थिंक सो इसमें मैंने कवर किया, मैं वैसे आपको बता देती हूँ. यू शुड बी लिसनिंग टू इट. ओके, इसके अलावा वी आर हैविंग जो 4th और 5th है, जो मैंने आपको बताया भी था. जो one is the specified one and another one is that wait, I will let you know later. Okay, we are straight away going to the major seaports. So we have different major seaports that are there in India, which is basically we have 12 major seaports and 187 non-major seaports. So basically, they are what are the main major seaports we are having. We are going to discuss that only. Basically they are 12. So उसमें से हम कुछ discuss करेंगे इसमें अभी. The first one is the Kandla. So Kandla it was one of the first port that was developed soon after the independence, and it was developed to ease the volume of trade on the Mumbai port. So Kandla is the tidal port. Tidal ports are basically which mostly travel through these ocean areas and not the river areas. So that's why they are the tidal ports. Now Mumbai is one of the biggest port with the spacious nature and well-sheltered harbour. So basically Mumbai is one of the and still one of the biggest port with the spacious nature that they are having, and they are well-sheltered harbour. Then apart from that, we have Jawaharlal Nehru Port, and it was planned with the view to decommission the Mumbai port and serve as a hub port for this region. So basically जो मुंबई पोर्ट था उसका जो चीज था वो बहुत ज्यादा हो गया था. लाइक जितना भी ट्रैवलिंग होता था मुंबई पोर्ट में, दे वर नॉट एबल टू मैनिफेस्ट इट. तो उसकी जगह मतलब उसके साथ में दे हैव इंट्रोड्यूस्ड दिस जवाहरलाल नेहरू पोर्ट, which is basically planned to decognize the Mumbai port and serve as a hub port for that particular region. Then we have Martinango port, which is in Goa. It is a premium iron ore exporting port of the country, and this port accounts for about 50% of India's iron ore export. Now apart from that, we have New Mangalore port. If it explore the same iron ore from Kudremukh mines. Then we have Kochi. It is located at the entrance of a lagoon with the natural harbour. Then we have Tuticorin, which is in Tamil Nadu. This port has a natural harbour and it trades a large variety of cargoes to our neighbouring countries like Sri Lanka, Maldives, etc. Then we have Chennai. It is one of the oldest artificial ports of the country. It is ranked next to Mumbai in terms of the volume of trade and cargo. Then we have Visakhapatnam, which is also very important because it is the deepest landlocked and well protected port, and this port was developed as a port port for iron ore exports only. Now apart from that, we have Pradeep Port, which is located in Odisha. It is specializes in the export of iron ore. Then it is there one in Kolkata. It is an inland riverine port. This port serves as the very large and rich hinterland of Ganga Brahmaputra basin. It is being a tidal port and it requires constant dragging of loggy rivers. Then we have Haldia Port, and it was developed as a subsidiary port in order to relieve growing pressure on the Kolkata port there. So these we have covered almost every port here. You can write down if it comes to major port के बारे में कोई में से 5 याद कर लेना, that is more than enough. And learn at least 5 to 6, so at least you should be remembering from these ports. Now we have airways. So the air travel basically today is the fastest and most comfortable and prestigious mode of transport. It can cover very difficult terrains like high mountains, dairy deserts, dense forests, and also long oceanic stretches with great ease. Think of the northeastern part of the country, which are marked with the presence of big rivers, dissected relief, dense forests, and frequent floods, and international ports, etc. in the absence of air transport. So air travel has made access to each and every travel very easy. Now what are the importance of airways? So basically the air travel we have currently today is अगर आप points में लिखना हो तो you can write these things in points this way only. It's the same way that it is the fastest, most comfortable and prestigious mode of transport. It can cover very difficult terrains like high mountains, dairy deserts, dense forests, and also long oceanic stretches with great ease. Now this air travel has made access easier in the northeastern part of the country, which has big rivers, dissected relief, dense forests, and frequent floods and natural falters. Now we are going to talk about another important topic, which is communication. So I am not going to talk about much in brief. जो main चीजें हैं इसमें we are going to discuss that. So majorly there are two major means of communication in India. First one is the personal communication, which include letter, email, telephone, etc. Second is the mass communication, which include television, radio, press, films, etc. Now mostly we have different types of mail handled by Indian postal departments. So this is very important if you want to learn about it, that there are different types of mail that handled by the Indian postal department. First is the first class mail and the second one is second class mail. So in the first class mail, they handle the cards and envelopes, which are like airlifted between the stations covering both land and air. And the second class mail includes both like book packets, registered newspapers and periodicals. They are carried by surface mail covering land and water transport. Now the importance of mass communication. So here we are like covering each and everything. So if you want to write about the importance of mass communication, you can use these points. Mass communication provides entertainment. They carry awareness among people about various national programs and policies. They provide variety of programs in national regions and local languages for various categories of people spread over different parts of the country. They strengthen the democracy in the country by providing news information to the masses, and it helps in agriculture sector by helping farmers by providing them information about new agricultural practices. Then Doordarshan is the national television channel of India and is one of the largest terrestrial network in the world. Then the largest number of newspapers published in the country are in Hindi, which are followed by English and Urdu. India is the largest producer of feature films in the world. Now about the international trade. So basically international trade is defined as the exchange of goods and services between two or more countries. So basically the trading system which is there in the own country, that is the domestic trade. But if you are exchanging the goods and services with other countries, that is known as international trade here. So international trade is defined as the exchange of goods and services between two or more countries. It is also considered as economic barometer because advancement of international trade of a country leads to economic prosperity as well. Now, the income earned from international trade constitutes a major part in the net national income also. तो जितना भी हमारा जो पैसा जो हमें मिलता है इंटरनेशनल ट्रेड के थ्रू, इम्पोर्टिंग जितनी भी हम ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा करते हैं, उसका मेन जो हमारा अमाउंट है, it basically helps in increasing our net national income, and mostly large international trade leads to revival of domestic economy as well. So basically, the more we are importing the things, the more benefit our national economy. It is increasing our national economy more and more. So what is the balance of the trade that need to be maintained? So that is quite important. So the difference between export and import is known as the balance of trade. तो जितना हम एक्सपोर्ट करते हैं और जितना हम इंपोर्ट करते हैं, सो बेसिकली उसका जो डिफरेंस होता है उसको हम कहते हैं बैलेंस ऑफ ट्रेड. सो इफ द वैल्यू ऑफ एक्सपोर्ट्स इज मोर देन द वैल्यू ऑफ इंपोर्ट्स, इट इज फेवरेबल बैलेंस ऑफ ट्रेड. बेसिकली अगर हम ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा अपना जो जितने भी चीज़ें हैं हम एक्सपोर्ट करते रहेंगे, मतलब हम दे रहे हैं, एक्सपोर्टिंग मतलब देना और इम्पोर्टिंग होता है लेना. तो अगर हम ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा चीज़ें हम एक्सपोर्ट करेंगे तो उसका जितना भी हमें रिवेन्यू मिलने वाला है, इट इज गोइंग टू इंक्लूड इनटू आवर नेशनल इकोनॉमी, विच इज काइंड ऑफ अ फेवरेबल बैलेंस ऑफ ट्रेड, क्योंकि हम ज़्यादा चीज़ें दे रहे हैं, उससे हमारा जो प्रॉफिट है ज़्यादा बढ़ रहा है. And if the value of imports is greater than the value of exports, it is known as unfavorable balance of trade. So basically the value of imports, मतलब जो जितना हम खरीद रहे हैं, so we are giving away our money to those countries. So वो पैसा हमारी कंट्री से उनको मिल रहा है. So basically it is the unfavorable balance of trade. So this, to maintain the favorable balance of trade, it is regarded as the goods for the economic development, whereas unfavorable balance of trade is seen harmful for the domestic economy. To maintain the GDP rate, to maintain the domestic economy, we need to export more than taking their items more from the importing system. Now, what is the importance of tourism as a trade? That's the last topic we are going to discuss in this particular chapter. So tourism in India earn huge foreign exchange. So basically, if the foreigners are traveling from different countries to our country, they are investing their money in our country. So basically, tourism is like in India earns huge foreign exchange from that. Like over 2.6 million foreign tourists visit India every year. Now this year it is not possible because of the corona scene, but before that, over 2.6 million foreign tourists will have always visited India every year, and more than 15 million people are directly engaged with the tourism industry only. So basically they provide them tourist guides, and this tourism industry have become such a huge opportunity for the people to like take the jobs and travel along with them, sightseeing, making these hotels in different areas, providing them help to sightseeing and each and everything. So tourism has also promoted the national integration, where they are promoting the national beauty of our country. So India is so beautiful. We have such a good places where these foreigners come, especially Agra, Delhi, different mountain ranges, then different other parts of the countries as well. So it basically provides support to our local handicrafts, where they can buy the things from these local handicrafts and they can purchase it, and they basically promote the culture pursuits as also. It also helps in the development of international understanding about our culture and heritage. And these foreign tourists visit India for heritage tourism, eco-tourism, adventure tourism, culture tourism, medical tourism and business tourism also. Now apart from that, Rajasthan, Goa, Jammu and Kashmir, temple towns of South India are important destination of these foreign tourists in India. There is vast potential of tourism development in the northeastern state and the interior parts of Himalayas, but due to strategic reasons, these have not been encouraged so far. Now the homework solution. So I have given you 4 questions to do. So these are the homework solution for that. Basically, I have asked you why international trade is considered as barometer of economic, because international trade is considered as the barometer of economic progress of the country, as it indicates the share of a country in world trade. Basically, if there are economic, जब आप इकोनॉमिक्स को अच्छे से पढ़ोगे तो उससे आपको पता चलेगा कि शेयर मार्केट होता है, और शेयर मार्केट में जो इंटरनेशनल ट्रेड होता है उसकी वैल्यू होती है. तो बेसिकली अगर हमारा इंटरनेशनल ट्रेड ऊपर होगा तो हम बाकी कंट्रीज में से शेयर हमारे ज़्यादा हैं बेसिकली. सो इट इंडिकेट द शेयर ऑफ द कंट्री इन द वर्ल्ड ट्रेड. इट ऑल्सो लीड टू इनफ्लो ऑफ जो हमारा फॉरेन एक्सचेंज है उसमें ज़्यादा होता है, एंड कैपिटल इन्वेस्टमेंट इन द कंट्री इज ऑल्सो मोर. सो इट कॉन्ट्रीब्यूट्स टू द इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चरल ग्रोथ एज वेल. Then significantly, it is the indicator of the role of the country's economy in a globalized world trade scenario. Now answer number 2. So the balance of trade compared to the value of country's export of goods and services against its import. So when exports are greater than imports, that's a trade surplus. Most nations view as a favorable trade balance, and the opposite when the value of imports outweighs the value of exports, it's a trade deficit. Basically, country usually regard that as an unfavorable trade balance. Answer number 3. Tourism can be considered as a trade because it involves exchange and buying and selling of products. The products can be defined in terms of holiday packages, hotel rents, means of transport, and hospitality, etc. Exchange of cultures can take place, and these exchanges are in monetary terms. Foreign tourists visit India for heritage tourism, adventure tourism, culture tourism, and business tourism, and in same manner India visit foreign places as well. So tourism can be considered as an industry because tourism is a large scale industry, as the money involved in it is very high. There is near about 21,828 crore of foreign exchange per year, and large number of people are directly engaged in tourism industry. As many as 20 million people. Promotes national integration and local handicrafts along with culture and heritage. It has huge chances of expansion. Then foreign tourists visit India for heritage tourism, वही same चीज़ है इसमें, eco tourism, adventure tourism, culture tourism, medical tourism, and business tourism. Now the homework for today is that you have to do the map work. So today I am just giving you to do the map work of Indian Railways, जो आपके पेज नंबर 86 पे दे रखा है. You have to do that, and major ports and international airports given on page number 89. So these two are the maps that you have to do as a homework today and show it to me. So that's it for today's lecture. So today we covered the entire chapter in the summary. So if you have any doubt related to this chapter, anything that you are not able to understand, please let me know in the online class. We'll discuss each and every topic there. And related to homework solution and homework also, you can ask me about any queries in the online class. So that's it for today's lecture. Please take care of yourself, and thank you so much for listening to this lecture.